Well, it almost happened again. The Toronto Blue Jays' late-inning comeback falls short.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the USA. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. As always, I'm Brayden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Brayden5Iwasko, Carter First too, as well on our main Twitter account at Locked On Jays. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. And if you're new here to YouTube, hit the subscribe button. It's free. You get your shorts, your live streams, your podcasts, your videos, the whole ordeal. And a lot of Blue Jays content to come here from us as the Blue Jays headed to what hopefully will be a long playoff run. But a lot to get into on today's episode. This was a disappointing one for sure because the comeback falls short. The Toronto Blue Jays down 2-0, getting to the ninth inning, making it happen. And then good old Jeff Hoffman on back-to-back days comes in and he gives this one away. And the Blue Jays aren't able to claw back in the ninth to make any real damage, any type of another comeback. And this game gets away from them. 1-1 series now with the Houston Astros. Is today, as you guys are listening to this, they'll look to hopefully win this series of what I called a must-win series. So Carter, I mean, we'll talk Jose Berrios, but I mean overall, this is a pretty, I don't know, like the last two games. Yeah, down the wire, it's been great, but for the majority of the innings, it hasn't been a fantastic game to watch.
Yeah, offensively, the at-bats aren't really where you want them to be at in what you call the must-win series, in a very important series, no matter which way you look at it, because you're in the middle of an AL East hunt, you're in the middle of trying to get a bye, you're in the middle of trying to make the playoffs still here. So luckily you get helped out in multiple facets like the Red Sox and the Yankees lose, but that's why you want to win. That would have been one more game that you would have had in hand on New York Yankees. And people are going to be very quick to blame Jeff Hoffman in this game. And yes, like he is a guy you can blame. Obviously, it's the ninth inning. It's a tie game. He blows it once again, giving up the most home runs out of any MLB relief pitcher. We were hearing that about Chad Green before, and now it's the Jeff Hoffman show with the home run story. But when you look at this game in totality, like the one thing that you got to blame is the offense. It's once again, even going back to the first game of this series, like you had one run, you were getting no hit through the first 5 innings of that first game. You score one run, again, you kind of get saved a little bit by the bottom of the order. You can't take that away from them. But throughout this game, again, Jason Alexander, who in my opinion was the worst out of the 3 pitchers that was going to throw in this series, he goes 7 innings and you don't score off of him like at all. And that's the biggest issue right there, is that you don't have competitive at bats for 7 innings straight. And then, yes, you get some good, nice swings from Andres Gimenez starting the rally, Ty France, a lot of these guys coming in up clutch, IKF being in the mix once again. But it's not too little too late, because again, like there's never too late in a baseball game. Like you have 9 innings for a reason. But this offense, against some of the caliber of starting pitchers that we've seen in this series already, like you expect a little bit more from the offense, where you're in a situation where you don't have to rely on Jeff Hoffman to get those final outs. But again, like you can't completely give Jeff Hoffman, give him the leeway here, because he's the closing pitcher. Like you're in the ninth inning, you want your closing pitcher, like that's his job. You want him to continue to get those outs and keep the game going. Again, the game still goes on because you're at the Rogers Center, but very deflating when you get 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning just for them to come out again in the 9th inning just to add once again.
Yeah, and you know what? I want to save a little bit of my Jeff Hoffman chat here for the second segment, because I do want to get into what I think is a bigger issue here. Not just Jeff Hoffman, but just how this team has been utilized lately. Well, I'll save it for then. But Carter, you hit the nail on the head. This was just not a good offensive game, right? I mean, all of your big dogs go over. George Springer, 0 for 4. Vladdy, 0 for 4. Varsho, 0 for 4. Kirk, 0 for 4. Barger, 0 for 1. I guess he ended up getting a walk as well. But nothing. How can you expect anything good to happen when your big dogs don't show up. And yes, you can't really say a whole lot about Vlad because he had a good game last game. Same with Springer, did a job. But Vlad comes up in a big moment where he could technically put that game away with one big swing of the bat. But instead of that, it's an out. And it's a tie ball game. And then you put a ton of pressure on your closing relieving pitcher at that point. And that is something in a moment where you could just take a series right then and there with a big hit from Vlad and it doesn't come through. And don't get me wrong, I think Vlad's, again, I've talked about how good or bad Vlad has been in certain situations in regarding the clutch. And I'm not talking about with runners in scoring position. I'm talking about late innings, 1-run ball game, tie ball game. When Vlad comes up, what happens? It's weird, Carter, but when George Springer came to the plate or Vladdy, I was really hoping that Nathan Lucas wasn't going to get walked there because I had almost more faith in him punching a single through something than Vlad doing anything. And I know that's a bad feeling to have and probably a wrong feeling to have, but it's what was sitting in the pit of my stomach. And then, Nathan Lucas does his job. Vladdy comes up and nothing. And that's an issue. I don't know. I think of this as a playoff game of what potentially could be a playoff game. And if this is what happens, this situation, this entire game, this entire situation is very possible that it could play out exactly like this in the playoffs. A pitching duel that comes down right to the end of the line. Your big guys need to step up when the lights are bright. And maybe you're right. Maybe it's not the playoffs. And people are going to say that, well, it's not the playoffs yet. So it's hard to say when the lights get too bright right now. But this game is every game right now is very important. Your big dogs need to show up. And this is one of those games where they didn't. And this was everybody else but every guy that you expected to do well, which is a great point because, when the big dogs don't show up, at least you are getting the other guys. But it's sort of been the issue is that I think where fans get frustrated is sometimes with the consistency of these big dogs in the big moments is that we've had to rely a lot on guys lower in the order. And again, good thing, bad thing. So, take what you want from that. But it definitely was frustrating because I did have that feeling in my stomach, and it's a feeling I don't want to have when we get into the playoffs.
In these games, it's very easy to kind of call out the top of the order because when you look at this Toronto Blue Jays offense and you look at the batting order, your expectation is the top of the order is probably going to carry this offense. Then the bottom of the order is going to come through in some scenarios. Maybe they'll start the rallies. Maybe they'll get a clutch hit here and there. But your expectation in any baseball team is the top of the order is going to carry for the entire season, the entire game. And when that doesn't happen and you see it kind of reverse, it's very easy to blame that top of the order and say, well, the bottom of the order hit. The bottom of the order should be worse players. Why can't the best players on the team, get some hits? Why are they the ones going 0 for 4? So you kind of blame Vladdy there. You blame the top of the order in totality, and that's kind of where I want to stem from because you brought up a few specifics with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He comes up in these clutch scenarios and he's hitting choppers in the infield for infield singles. Like that gets the job done. But I think like the point that you're trying to make here is that you haven't really seen like the big home run swing or like the Vladdy gapper. Like you've seen maybe like the opposite field kind of slash like the Bichette approach where he's gotten the infield slice here, the infield hit. He's gotten the soft contact single, but you haven't seen like Vladdy pimp a home run. You haven't seen Vladdy like smoke a double down the line. He has gotten these jobs done, but it hasn't been like in the most convincing ways. Yeah. But you bring up Vladdy in like these scenarios, like he grounded out today. He had a couple big at-bats in previous games where he didn't necessarily come through. But George Springer is right there as well. When you look at these last two games, like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. grounds out in this game, but George Springer, when Andres Gimenez comes up and kind of gets bailed out by Nathan Lucas, if we're being completely honest, for hitting a single after that. But George Springer in the first game comes up, IKF hits a single, has runners on second and third base, 1 out, he strikes out. George Springer comes up in this game, he strikes out once again. So if you're going to blame Vladimir Guerrero Jr., which is probably a lot easier to do than 35-year-old George Springer, who has already been carrying this offense and way overachieved expectations up to this point in the season. But like at this point, you're not worried about age. You're not worried about contracts. You're not worried about the expectation necessarily. It's just who's going to come through for you in that big scenario. All players should be valued the same at this point. Doesn't matter if you're supposed to do it or not, and you're expected to do it more often than another player. You got to come through in these scenarios. So Vladdy is to blame, obviously, as well, but there's 9 players in an order. There's 9 players in a lineup. They're going to have to come through if this team wants to be successful.
Absolutely. And I didn't want to make that seem like, and thanks for clarifying, because I didn't want to make it seem like it was just Vladdy. There were a lot of players in big opportunities this game that could have done something, right? One big blast, and you're right back in this ball game that just never happened. And I named a couple of them: Daulton, Varsho, Alejandro, Kirk, George Springer, Vladdy, all these guys. And I hate to say this because it's something we're just going to have to deal with. But the absence of Bichette drastically hurts this team.
Yeah, it sucks. It's noticeable, obviously. Who would
Very
have thought you're going to notice Bichette not being in your lineup?
Yeah, and I think again, there's I don't know if it's the front office because I feel like a lot of fans this season are giving Bichette all the flowers he deserves. Maybe not quite enough, but a lot of it anyway. They've seen how good Bichette is, and I think when he's not in the lineup, you really, really notice it. So again, I'm hoping this front office is now seeing all of this. So when we hit free agency at the end of this season, they'll give Bichette the contract that he's probably well deserving of after all the amazing seasons he's given the Toronto Blue Jays. And I hope that he doesn't get shortchanged because he's a guy, if you lose him, you can't expect this again from George Springer this type of season. You just can't. So where do you go? Where do you go? You're hoping Anthony Santander becomes a home run machine again. But imagine, again, you having great Anthony Santander, hopefully next season. You have Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., then you still have Daulton, Varsho, Alejandro, Kirk, all these guys. But if you lose Bichette, you almost lose the heart of this team. Or maybe not the heart, because I think you do see a little bit of the heart coming from Vladdy and Springer. But the center, the core, I guess, is what you end up losing. So I just wanted to throw that out there because that was one thing that just jumps off the page to you.
Well, if you're in a big scenario, like you're not calling on Vladdy, like you could call on George Springer. That's probably my number 2 guy, but like you're calling on Bichette. Like Bichette is the guy that has you're looking for a clutch hit. You're looking for like that massive double down the line or like that hard hit ball in the gap. Like that's what Bichette's been doing this entire season. And that's why when we talked about Bichette in the offseason, this is going to be the story of the offseason. Once we, get through the playoffs, like after this World Series happens, you get through everything. Hopefully it goes well for the Toronto Blue Jays. That is why we are getting a little bit ahead of ourselves in terms of like noticing or not noticing Bichette, but obviously it's relevant with the injury. It's that for me, like I started out with the Bichette saga with the contract talks. The baseline was Willie Adames. Like I was around 175 million. This guy's easily 200 million. Like we're probably talking 250 million the open market. Who knows what's going to happen now with all the contracts that have already been we're going to talk about that literally this entire offseason. We're going to talk about the role of George Springer if Daulton Varsho is going to be able to hit home runs at this rate. Like we're going to talk about all offseason to talk about this kind of stuff. So I guess 100%. Like where I'm kind of staying at here is I guess Bichette's still here. I mean, he's not technically here. Like he's with the Toronto Blue Jays though, at least for this calendar year. So let's just enjoy it while it's here sort of thing. And let's not try to, think of all scenarios where Bichette's not on this baseball team because he is still, or at least right now, on this baseball team. But to your point though, yes, very obvious. And it would definitely be nice right now to have Bichette in a lineup because the guy that has been one of your most prolific hitters this season and has been one of the hottest hitters since the All-Star break, you're easily going to notice that guy if he's not in your lineup. That's like if Aaron Judge is not in the Yankees lineup, are you going to notice that or not? Yeah. So obviously, you're going to notice if your superstar is not in your lineup.
Absolutely. And you know what? I've been the guy that's been saying that Bichette is going to remain a Toronto Blue Jay, and I'm going to stick to my guns on that one. But I did want to throw this in here because you brought it up in regards to the contract about it possibly being a $250 million contract. That's where I was. We went on, me and you have been going on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, for a little bit here. And it's one thing I brought up, and they had other experts on, Blair and Barker and everything like that, saying that, it was going to be like 170, maybe it touches 190. And I went on and I said, it's going to be 250 million. Like, I don't know who we're kidding ourselves here. The precedent for all of these contracts has been set. Bichette is going to get a bag. And if he has a season like we all assumed he would, which leading the AL in hits and doubles,
in the major leagues, Trey Turner is really the only guy that's going to be able to touch like the doubles. The doubles is pretty much locked up, I'll be completely honest, even with the injury. But with the hits, Trey Turner and Bichette will be battling it out. But the American League, like pretty much lock it up. Bichette is your American League winner in hit totals this year.
Totally. Carter, let's take a quick break. Let's come back. We'll talk Jose Berrios, how his start went. And then, of course, we got to talk Jeff Hoffman again, so we might as well.
It's like a weekly segment at this point.
I swear, I should make an intro for it. Like, anyway, we'll be right back after this short break.
Today's episode is sponsored by 5-Hour Energy Transfusions. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sticky birdies or just making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. I've been returning to school this last week or week and a half, so it has been a little bit of an adjustment. Been working full time, obviously, in the summer, but the 5-Hour Energy Transfusion shots have been clutch. They've been taking me back to all the great memories I had during the summer on the golf course, but also giving me that extra pick me up throughout the day to keep me alert and actually focused on the schoolwork that I'm doing throughout the day. You can use that whether you're at school, looking after the kids, on the job site. It is perfect for any scenario you're going to encounter throughout your life. So golf is all about the good times with the good people and those good flavors. The grape, ginger, and lime flavor of the 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. You can visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. That is 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament, and this ends October 31st, 2025.
Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. You guys know how much I love FanDuel. I talk about it all the time because it's the premier place to place all of your bets. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Honestly, bonus bets are like free money. You can use that stuff. You can place big bets, try to hit it big. You can use it to, I'm just going to build up the account with these bonus bets. I did it. My brother did it. I got Carter to do it. We're all on FanDuel. We're all placing bets. I got my 3-leg parlay for the NFL week that I do every week. I usually put a 3-game money line parlay down, and it hopefully is going to go well. We'll see. I'll let you guys know sort of at the end of the weeks or at the beginning of every week how my parlays do if you're interested at all. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. So, Carter, continuing on, we're going to talk Jeff Hoffman. Obviously, we have to, even though it's getting tired at this point, this conversation. But it's probably one of the most prevalent things coming out of this game. But before we do that, let's, I think, give a little bit of credit where credit is due. Jose Berrios lately has been a shell of himself. And this game, I think you started to see things go in the right direction. He goes 5 1/3, 5 hits, 2 runs. 4 Ks, a walk. He obviously gives up the moon ball as well, which is, it seems like for these Toronto Blue Jays pitchers, just a guarantee at this point. But overall, Carter, I think it was a step in the right direction for Jose Berrios. This was a little bit of hopefully getting this guy somewhat back on track because he may be a guy that you have to turn to in the playoffs. And I'm maybe not saying that he's going to be a top 3 role, but if you need him for a 4th game or something like that, right? You always need the possibility, and you always need a guy to fall back on. And hopefully Jose Berrios can sort of find his footing towards the end of this season and the last couple starts he's going to have.
You can never have too many starting pitchers. You can never have too many pitchers on a playoff team. And Jose Berrios is a guy that you want to be able to rely on. Like, you want to have as an option, at least. Like, maybe you have some guys that you trust more than Jose Berrios, but it's not going to be a bad thing if Jose Berrios can pitch effectively for any baseball team. The biggest issue with Jose Berrios that we've seen this year is honestly with the velocity, I think. It's with a guy that has not really thrown that hard throughout his career. Has been a guy that's sat kind of 93.5, 94, and that's when Jose Berrios is at his best, when he's had his best seasons in the last few seasons, at least with the Toronto Blue Jays. Like, I'm going to only speak on the Toronto Blue Jays stuff because that's when I've been watching Jose Berrios, obviously. He's been successful in the fastball. The sinker's been at 94 when it's been 94.5. Where we've seen this year, it's kind of sunk down to 92 and even lower than that. If Jose Berrios is sitting at 90.5 to 91 with his sinker, Like the other fastball or the other pitches, sorry, the secondaries just aren't going to play as much. Like it's 3 miles per hour on a fastball is a lot at the major league level, especially when you're not already throwing hard. So in this start, what we saw from Jose Berrios is he sat at 92.1 with the fastball. Sorry, he's at 93.2. The average is 92.1, and that is the issue. 93.2 was the average fastball, and that's going to help Jose Berrios a ton. That extra 1.5 to 1 miles per hour. If you can get that with good command, which we've seen obviously with every starting pitcher on the Toronto Blue Jays, their command falters. That's usually where you're going to get beat up, is where you're over the middle of the plate. But yeah, that's with Jose Berrios. If he can continue to throw hard, which is seemingly been like it's been a coin flip, which I mean, that's obviously a lot of pitchers. If you can throw harder, you're going to be more successful. But with Jose Berrios, a guy that's not going to blow you with velocity in the first place, that's where we got to see his velocity if you want to see him be successful, especially against good teams that you're going to see in the playoffs.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. This is exactly sort of the point we've been having to make all season with Jose Berrios, or at least since the break. It feels like it's just he can't find his footing. And it all does rely on, for most pitchers, it's getting on top of your fastball, knowing your fastball and believing in your fastball, and it doing the work. Because if you can establish that pitch, it makes the entire rest of your arsenal that much more effective. And Jose Berrios just hasn't been able to get on top of it. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. There's not much to say because, again, it's been one outing, and you don't want to glaze the guy for really not being out there one time and, hoping that everything's back. You just can't do that. So I'm a little bit in the stage for Jose Berrios where it's prove it to me now. You have to be able to prove it because, I don't feel super fantastic when he takes them out. So we'll have to wait and see how much he can do sort of in the last little stretch here of games. But Carter, I think it's saying that it's time to get into it. Cue the intro.
There's one thing I quickly want to go over before, we start the weekly, almost daily segment that we could talk about, seeming like with Jeff Hoffman after the All-Star break. But I just wanted to give a shout out to the bottom of the order once again for just coming through. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but Andres Gimenez, like before, like this experience with Gimenez, like the way you could watch this guy is that obviously defensively, like just astounded you at all times. So if he was up to the plate, like just, maybe make some food, go get a snack, go to the bathroom. Like you're not going to miss a whole lot when Andres Gimenez has been at the plate, but he's been pleasantly surprising. And it's not like he's, having that 900 OPS with 1 million home runs, because that's not a fair expectation to have with Andres Gimenez. When I said I was out on the Andres Gimenez experience, it was because he had an OPS of like 550. The at-bats were absolutely horrendous. Like he wasn't making very good contact. He was chasing at some pitches. You can have that OPS around 700, like the average, I don't even care about. If you can just have competitive at-bats and get on base at the bottom of the order, kind of continue to move the order forward and get back to the top of the order as soon as possible. In this instance, I mean, who needs the top of the order when you got the bottom of the order producing? But Andres Gimenez has found himself when right in the middle of these rallies when the bottom of the order has come through in these scenarios. So I want to give a shout out to him, Nathan Lucas not being at the bottom of the order. This guy has been at the bottom, but in this game, he's at number 2. That's why I like him at number 2. Always a gritty at-bat with Nathan Lucas, no matter if he's hitting 1, 2, 8, or 9. And then Miles Straw just doing it every single game this year. Just seeming like whatever role you throw him in there, he's going to do a job. He's going to fulfill that role, whether it's bunting, whether it's the hit and run, and, unless it's the Yankee series in the 9th inning with Nathan Lucas on base. But most of the time when you got Miles Straw in these scenarios, he's very versatile, and you can kind of throw him into any scenario, and he's going to be successful. Or if he's not going to be successful, he's going to make sure he tries his damn hardest to be successful.
Yeah, he really has been just a nice surprise. And I think there's been a lot of guys like that this season coming off the 2024 that we did have, and sort of how we expected these players to perform after making some of these deals, right? The Andres Gimenez deal, the Miles Straw deal. We weren't high on either of these guys, but if they can come in and do a job and the job that is being asked of them, well, you're getting what you sort of expected or didn't expect, right? More than you expected, I guess. So it's massive. And that lends itself to why this team is having success, is because you are having these bottom of the order guys do the job that's asked of them. And that's fantastic. So yeah, big shout out to those guys doing their job in the last couple games. So, but in saying that, Carter, I think it's time. Obviously, I think I want to give a shout out before we get into Jeff Hoffman. I want to give a shout out, and that's to Brayden Fisher. My man, this guy, every time, if it's a close ball game, this guy's going to deliver exactly what you want for him to deliver. Like it is unbelievable that this guy was just down in AAA. Like it's mind-boggling to me because he has been so good And so, yeah, huge shout out to him. I'm not going to go through the numbers on everybody. I mean, it was nice to see, Louis Varland not give up a run. Brett Little, I mean, was in for a third of an inning, so whatever.
Yeah, kind of a typical Brett and Little experience. We got
Yeah.
once again the command not being not good, but it's been interesting to say the least with Brendan Little. If you're a fan of heart attacks, watch Brendan Little pitch for the Toronto Blue Jays. But yeah, it's time to get into it. Maybe now you bring up Brayden Fisher, and this might be a guy that it may be a dark horse to talk about. Probably not, to be completely honest. But I mean, hey, the way he's pitching, it's been very nice, and it's the Jeff Hoffman saga once again. Jeff Hoffman comes into the game, gives up another home run, 15 home runs on the year, most home runs by a relief pitcher. This one's a fastball on the inside part of the plate to Yainer Diaz, a guy that chases some of the most pitches in the entire major leagues. Brayden, I'm going to throw it over to you. Just initial thoughts. I know a lot of people calling for Jeff Hoffman's head, obviously, and we talked a lot about this on the podcast, but we continue to talk about it. At what point do you just have to say we cannot continue to roll Jeff Hoffman out as the closing pitcher for a serious playoff contending baseball team?
I don't know where to go with this. Well, I do. I have two things. Don't roll Jeff Hoffman out back-to-back days. That's about where I'm at here. And where else do you go, right? I guess that's the big question, because you just pitched Sir Anthony Dominguez yesterday. Yariel Rodriguez went. Braden Fisher goes. Louis Varland goes. You can't turn to Brendan Little. Like, who's your best option? I love Yariel Rodriguez. To me, he's one of the guys I almost trust the most at this point. But do I trust him in that situation? I don't really know. Do I trust Sir Anthony Dominguez? I think it debatably could be the same thing. I think Sir Anthony Dominguez is good. I think he's awesome, but I could see it going the same way that the Jeff Hoffman experience has been going, where he gives up a ton of walks and then a hit, and then, oh my goodness, there goes the game. So yeah, this is bad. But I don't know now where else you go. I think it becomes more of, like I said, I don't know, a month ago, maybe it's time to go to a little bit of by committee. And I don't know how you do that, but I think if you pitch one guy to close the game this day, don't go back to him the next day. Go to somebody else, just to switch everything up. So they're not planning, hey, they're going to go to Jeff Hoffman if we get into a situation like this. Everybody should be expecting of what to hit, where to hit. Maybe you turn to a different guy in this situation just because it may throw off a game plan. I don't know at this point, Carter. And I think that's a scary thing to think going into the playoffs with Jeff Hoffman, you expecting the, his walkout song to come on in the ninth. And instead of, doing the everybody getting involved, I'm crapping my pants in the stands. That's where we are. It's just, it's tough, dude. I don't know what the right answer is, but that's what I got. I think it's maybe a little bit of by committee here.
Yeah, I don't hate your answer. Like, I don't hate the result of the answer. I don't like your reasoning for it. Like, just not throwing Jeff Hoffman back-to-back days. Like, you're going to have to throw a relief pitcher in back-to-back days in any scenario.
I mean, in closing roles.
So, like, you're okay with going like Jeff Hoffman, like, for example, like the first game of the Astros series, he closes out the game, whatever. And then the next day, you wouldn't want him to use him again in that ninth inning role. You'd rather him come out in the eighth inning, I guess.
Yeah, and it's weird, but it's almost just to throw off the game plan. And because we've seen him in situations like, ideally, you don't throw Sir Anthony Dominguez the day before, and then you go into a Jeff Hoffman today, Sir Anthony Dominguez tomorrow. But again, during the regular season, that's not how baseball works. You got to use guys where you need to use them. But in the playoff situation, you have a couple guys that are debatably neck and neck right here and here. So maybe you use them on offsetting days. And again, tough to say because you're in a close game. You want to make sure you get that one. But it becomes to a certain point where instead of just thinking about one game, you have to think about now a series of games and how this is going to affect not just we need to get this win, we also have to get this win and this win. So I think it's more so of just bullpen planning. That's where I'm at now looking into the playoffs for me.
Yeah, I don't mind the result you're at, but like, what if Jeff Hoffman went out and threw 3 strikeouts in a row in the first game of the series, and then goes out? You're not going to throw him in the ninth inning after that just because he pitched the day before. Like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I don't mind the by committee approach. Sorry, because at this point, I mean, like, this is what I was going to go into when we're talking about some of these closing pitchers. The first thing is there's not a lot of options. Like, who else? Like, you brought up Yariel Rodriguez. We've seen him blow up from time to time. We've seen him go through tough stretches. Like, that's not a guy that I trust the most out of any guy. Like, I'm not throwing Louis Varland, like Brendan Little. Good luck with that. Like, we're almost at like Brayden Fisher, I think, is my number 3 guy. Like, in all seriousness, I really truly believe that he would be like my number 3 in the circle of trust. Maybe he's even number 1. It's just, do you trust him as your closing pitcher for a guy that's never really done that? A guy that was sent down to AAA, which is crazy in its own regard. But this is like, people have brought up Seranthony Dominguez, and this is really the only other guy that I could see being thrown into this closing role. But you kind of have to pick your poison a little bit here. And I've been like a try and true Jeff Hoffman is the closing pitcher on this Toronto Blue Jays team, because I've seen the upside. Like, when it goes well for Jeff Hoffman, like, he is one of the best closers in all baseball. But that's the thing, if it's going well. And when it doesn't go well, the result is Jeff Hoffman giving up 1 million home runs. And that is my issue here. Because we look at Seranthony Dominguez, this is a guy that walks a ton of people, but doesn't really give up a lot of home runs. 5 home runs Seranthony Dominguez has given up the entire season. Jeff Hoffman has given up 6 since the All-Star break. Like, this is a real problem that Jeff Hoffman has. And we've seen how much damage it can cause. Like, a home run ball being given up in a late inning, it's obviously, if you're starting to lose the baseball game, like, that's the biggest problem. And it's so deflating as an offense, especially when you just battle back. You're not having your best offensive performance whatsoever. You just battle back in the 8th inning. And then what happens immediately in the 9th inning? You get one guy out, and then Yainer Diaz comes up and launches a moon ball. But then if you start Seranthony Dominguez, like, this guy has 34 walks this entire season. Jeff Hoffman has 21. So that's a 13 walk difference. Like, that is a massive difference. But I'm starting to get to the point where if Seranthony Dominguez walks 2 guys, you're still in the game. You still haven't thrown the baseball game yet at this point. If Jeff Hoffman gives up a moon ball, which at this point he's done seemingly at least once a series if he's making multiple appearances, like, that is something that you almost can't recover from. Whereas at least Seranthony Dominguez, you start with him. If it goes well, you ride it out. And this is where I don't mind this by committee approach here. But again, this has some issues in its own regard. Is that if you see Seranthony Dominguez struggle and he walks the first 2 guys, maybe bring in that Yariel Rodriguez, who has been very successful with runners on. Maybe bring in a Jeff Hoffman that, again, has had some upside in a lot of instances. You can kind of tell right away if Jeff Hoffman has it or not. And if Seranthony Dominguez doesn't have it and Jeff Hoffman doesn't have it, well, at that point, I'm okay with losing the baseball game. Because you've used 2 relievers in the same inning. If both of them don't have it, like, that's like, you're not going to be able to overcome that. So now I'm starting to experiment with this idea. It's like, hey, at least if Seranthony Dominguez is in the 9th inning and he's walking the house, like, I'm almost a little bit more okay with that, because you still have a chance to recover rather than Jeff Hoffman going in, throwing one pitch, see you later, and that's the ball game.
So let me ask you this, and this again, we said, hey, we're going to keep this episode short, but then we get into it, obviously, with the bullpen stuff. Would it be situational? So in a tie ball game where one bomb could end the game for you, is that where you go Seranthony Dominguez? Because, hey, we can allow a couple base runners. If it's going to go bad, it's going to go bad. Whereas, hey, it's a 2 or 3 run save. Maybe that's a situation that you turn to Jeff Hoffman and be like, okay, well, if we give up the 1 home run, it's not over, right? So maybe it is by committee, and maybe it is by situation instead of this one tried and true guy here. So yeah, I think that's where it lies here.
That's actually the exact thought process I had. You actually hit the nail on the head with that one. Shout out to Brayden for using the big brain that he has over there. But yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, is that Jeff Hoffman, you come in for a 2-3 run save. Again, this changes if you walk the first hitter as Jeff Hoffman. But if you give up that solo shot in a multi-run save, not going to hurt you in the grand scheme of things. We've seen Jeff Hoffman have the ability to bounce back when he does give up that solo shot. Whereas with Seranthony Dominguez, hey, if you walk 2-3 guys, like, let's not wait until you throw that pitch right down the middle, since he is already struggling for that command, to watch that moon ball leave the Rogers Center, wherever it ends up being. Like, maybe that is that kind of by committee approach where, hey, you see a team, or it's that situation where it's by team, like, hey, maybe this team strikes out a lot, and then you throw Seranthony Dominguez, or hey, maybe you have a multi-run lead or it's a 1-run lead, and that's dependent on who you go with. And yes, I think we're at the point now where Jeff Hoffman's given up way too many home runs, where it's like you haven't been able to comfortably send this guy out and feel confident in him. And my point before was, like, is it at the point where I trust Seranthony Dominguez more? I'm at the point now where I just want to limit damage and I don't want to lose a baseball game off a home run. So there has to be some sort of experimentation they do with the back end of this bullpen.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? I think we've come to a good consensus. I want to hear from you guys. Leave your comments, thoughts, and feelings down below. We had some good comments on yesterday's, but when it comes to the bullpen, we don't have all the right answers. And obviously, the Toronto Blue Jays don't have all the right answers. So maybe one of you guys got a great idea. If you agree with us, let us know. If you think there's maybe a better solution, let us know that too. We'll talk about it. We got lots of episodes here. We do 5 days a week. A lot of stuff to talk about. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll tee up the final game in what I called a must-win series, and do a little bit of scoreboard watching when we come back.
Today's episode is also sponsored by Nutrafol. You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, sure, like that actually works. There are so many hair products out there, and it's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything, but that is why you should give Nutrafol a closer look. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand trusted by over 1.5 million people. And it's not just hype. This is a supplement clinically tested that targets the root causes of thinning and shedding with a proactive approach. I have a couple friends, unfortunately, at their middle 20s that are already starting to experience some hair loss. And with hair loss, you want to get to it as early as possible. That is where you're going to be able to save the most amount of hair loss. And that is where Nutrafol comes in. It is very convenient, very easy to stay on plan with your treatment. And that's something that, again, you want to hammer at early to make process and treatment as easy as possible. So you can see thicker, stronger hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol, and just for a limited time. Nutrafol is offering Locked On MLB listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code Locked On MLB. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code Locked On MLB.
So, Carter, I mean, now it's a 1-1 series, and this is what I absolutely hate to see, because it reminds me a lot of the New York Yankees series that just happened, where you win the first one, and then bang, bang, you're down and you lose the series. And don't get me wrong, all of these games that the Toronto Blue Jays have now lost in these last 2 series have been competitive ball games. It's not like it's a blowout. This team is fighting and battling and clawing their way to make these games close. But now, in a series that I think is a must-win, you got to figure it out and get the job done here.
I want to ask you about that, because you have a must-win series against the Houston Astros. But now we've looked at the scoreboards and just giving the people some updates. The Boston Red Sox lost on Wednesday from a score of 5-4. Thank you to the Sacramento Athletics for helping the Blue Jays out. And the one I want to focus on more is the New York Yankees getting absolutely pummeled by the Detroit Tigers, 11-1 and 12-2. Now they have lost 2 straight games. The Toronto Blue Jays, since that series, have obviously gained a game on them. Was that more so where you're coming from for the must win? Was it just to gain ground on the New York Yankees, or maybe stay afloat against the New York Yankees? Now that they've lost 2 games, like, is that must win change for you, or is this a bigger picture thing?
No, it's a bigger picture thing, and it always was, because at the end of the day, this could be, if you win this game and win this series, and the Yankees, knock on wood, get swept, that sort of feels like nail in the coffin.
You're in a really good spot if that happens.
Yeah. And
especially when they're playing the Red Sox over, like, in a weekend series, like, yeah, exactly. Sign me up for that. Like, you're gaining games on whoever, hopefully the New York Yankees, but.
And I think it also stems from the fact of just confidence. That's it. You just lost to the Yankees. You're now gaining ground on them in a series against another good playoff team. This just seems like a series that can sort of take you right to the end of the season. Like, you can sort of ride the high off of this. And it just seemed like a little bit of a breaking or possible turning point when I was looking at the schedule to come. So it's not necessarily like it's just this series specifically, like the Houston Astros or, whatever. No, it's more so the fact of the Yankees and where this puts you in the series, the mentality of the team, everything in general. There's just a lot of different pieces that went into me. And I don't say must-win series very often. It might have been the first
I'm pretty sure it was the first one of the year. I think I've done it twice. It hasn't been for a while. I think I should have used it in the New York Yankees series. But yeah, you don't say it a lot. So something about this Astros series was definitely sticking out to you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just more of, like you said, bigger picture, a lot of different components that did it for me. But yeah, finally I did pull the trigger on a must-win series.
Yeah, only 2-3 weeks before the end of the season. Who would have thought you would have had a couple must wins before that time, especially if you want to win the American League, hopefully get a bye to avoid the wild card round. But just go over the third game of the series, the pitching matchups. Kevin Gausman for the Toronto Blue Jays, Christian Javier for the Houston Astros. Kevin Gausman been very good, even like not just his last 7 starts, over the last 15, you could say even a little bit more than that. A whip of 103, 89 strikeouts over 92 innings, a 3.42 ERA over that stretch. Again, trying to build that pedigree, trying to build the resume to show John Schneider that he should be the number 1 starter in a playoff scenario. But before you get to the playoffs, you got to take care of business against the Houston Astros. This would be a big win because that not only separates you a little bit more from the Houston Astros, but that is the team that is chasing you for the second spot in the American League, the first spot in the American League, actually, at this point right now. For me, like I've said before on the podcast, I don't care if it's 1 or 2. It'd be cool to win the American League, obviously, but the main goal is the bye. So that is what my sights are focused on. And the Toronto Blue Jays continue to put themselves in a good spot to have a very good shot at achieving that bye. But you got to start against the Houston Astros and hopefully win a must-win series, according to Brayden, and take that series against the Astros.
Yeah, absolutely, Carter. And we've talked it to death. I mean, the last three episodes has been us talking about where the standings and where this team sits. I think it is a great thing to see the Yankees getting pummeled. You just love it at this point of the season, and you need it from a Toronto Blue Jays perspective, right? So, at the end of the day, this is a big one. But not saying that every other series right now isn't. Every series is going to be big. Are they going to be must wins? Well, I think you'll want to win a lot of them, but I think this one specifically is super important. My man, in saying that, it is a sort of an afternoon game tomorrow. It's sort of perfect for me. Shout out Jim Toth. Me and him have been in a battle lately of every time it's Jays, Astros, one of us call each other at the end of the game and give each other the well, look who won. And tomorrow I will be producing Jim's show on CGOB, so we'll be able to watch that game together. Isn't that sickening? Hopefully it goes the Toronto Blue Jays way, but we'll have to wait and see. Carter, my man, anything else before we kick out of here for the day, evening, whatever it is that you guys are watching this?
Another day, another game off the Toronto Blue Jays schedule, and no movement in the standings. That is something that is going to bode well for the Toronto Blue Jays. And thank you to the schedule makers for doing us a little bit of a favor. Playing the Toronto Blue Jays game on at 2:07. I got some time throughout the days now, especially on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So sign me up for the day games and allowing us to watch some NFL football without some interruption as well. So we'll definitely take that. Excited the NFL is back. Excited that we got a playoff or an MLB, playoff stretch down in September, a playoff run. That's what I'm trying to say in September. We got some meaningful baseball is where I'm trying to get at here. It's a lot of fun. It's a good time to be a sports fan. Just wait until hockey comes around. Hopefully Toronto Blue Jays in the playoffs too. I mean, does it get any better than that? Maybe if the Bombers won a game, that would make it a little bit better. But that's a story for another day. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll talk to you guys once again tomorrow.